everybody? Welcome back to Off the Grid, a Power Rangers podcast. I am your host, Jacob Bartley, and we are back to action, ready to talk some Power Rangers. This is the show where we talk all Power Ranger stuff, and basically we focus on the TV shows, any potential movie material, comics, and toys as well, collectibles, Power Rangers collectibles. And before we get into our main topics today, which are more on Power Rangers Ninja Storm and me doing the best and worst Zords of all time, just want to shout out Jake Berlin again for making the terrific thumbnail for this show, the main logo thumbnail and the regular thumbnail that you see on YouTube. Also, the new lower third to match it, and giving me some great new intro music that is not going to be flagged for copyright, because the song I was using, which I love, is the score from the Power Rangers movie, 2017 Power Rangers movie. Amazing score, absolutely incredible score, but you can't use those kind of you can't use scores for movies unless you want to get it flagged. You don't get in trouble, but they can monetize your video. You can never monetize it, things like that. So I have some new music, little crazy and wild, just like Power Rangers, and some new graphics, which awesome, thanks to Jake Berlin. Also, I'm drinking orange soda, the unofficial soda of the Off the Grid podcast. If Fanta wants to sponsor me, I'll drink a Fanta every episode if Fanta wants to sponsor me. Orange soda is just the best. And I might have a little while on air, which is annoying, but it's pretty hot here in California today. So, before we get into the best and worst Zords of all time, let's talk a little bit about, and I gotta bring up my notes here, very unprofessional and unprepared. Let's talk about Power Rangers Ninja Storm. So last week I talked about it, and I was talking about how I was not expecting it to be good because I just watched Power Rangers Wild Force, and that was not good. And like, I'm expecting these other seasons to be bad. I don't know why. That's unfair. But it's hard for me to see like anything past Time Force. Like, I've never heard anyone talk super highly about another series, Power Ranger series of past Time Force. So that's why I'm really hesitant on like whether these will be great or not. So, but this is a great thing because I thought Ninja Storm was going to suck, and it's actually really good. I like it a lot. It's now the way I'm gonna categorize. Move some stuff around here on my screen. The way I'm gonna categorize Wild Ninja Storm is that I would say, look, there's a huge gap in between the Power Ranger seasons that I love and the ones that I don't like and I hate. There's not a lot in between. So there's this area which are just great, and then there's this middle area that's not really occupied by many seasons, and then there's just dumpster fire seasons like season 3, Turbo, seasons like that, which I hate. And then like the closest to middle ground for me would be like Lost Galaxy. I really, really like Lost Galaxy, but it's not, and I really, really like Mighty Morphin season 2, and I really, really like what's it called? I think that's it, like the middle of the pack, ones that I really like, but they're not in this gold standard. And for me, the gold standard is season 1, In Space, Zeo, and Time Force. Those are the gold standard for me. So a lot of times it's either they suck or they're great. And I think Ninja Storm is the first one that's like, it's not great. And look, I'm only about 15 episodes in, but I would, maybe by the end I have it up there with those other great ones for me. But it's not great, but it's not nowhere near the bad. So I'm actually happy that I like this season because it's it just works. Like I wasn't expecting it. I don't have a lot of expectations anymore for these seasons. So we'll see. And another reason why I have low expectations is because Beast Morphers. I don't look. There's the cast of Beast Morphers is charming. They're great. Like their enthusiasm and the effort that they bring to their roles is great. But the show, the story, the dialogue is terrible. Don't you want a Fanta? That was terrible. But hey, if they sponsor me, then I'll have to say that. But yeah, so Beast Morphers is bad. So I'm expecting these newer shows for me to be bad. But yeah, Ninja Storm is awesome. So you have the three main characters. You have Shane, Tori, and I believe Dustin. I like all three of them. And I think I like Dustin the most because Dustin is like the bro dude who is totally like out of his element and just, but he's a great Power Ranger. So it's just so cool. And then Shane is that typical cocky guy who thinks he can do everything on his own, but realizes he needs his team. So he's the leader, and he's cool. I think I like Tori and Dustin the most, but all three of them are solid. And then, so you have these Thunder Rangers introduced, and it's weird because one of them, who is Hunter, he is a reddish colored ranger, and then you have Blake, who's like another blue. So you have Tori, who's a blue ranger, and then you have Blake, who's another type of blue ranger, and then you have Shane, who's a red ranger, and Hunter's a red ranger. But the way they have it listed on Wikipedia is they have Shane as the red wind ranger, and then Hunter is the Crimson Thunder Ranger, and then Blake is the Navy Thunder Ranger, and Tori is the Blue Wind Ranger. So I guess there is a way to differentiate between that. So at first you have those characters, they're evil. I was like, oh geez, like another Psycho Ranger. So I love the Psycho Rangers, but like they're doing this type of thing again. But they have this situation where they are tricked into going after them, and then they find out the truth that they were being lied to, and that uh, then they join the Power Rangers. So now basically there's 5 Power Rangers now, and I don't recall there ever being a time where there's 4 male Rangers and only 1 female Ranger, which is interesting. Like it's okay for them to do that every once in a while, but I don't. They would never do 4 female Rangers and 1 male Ranger, and that's possibly because probably like the Super Sentai that they're adapting from, uh, like they have to go based on that, right? So if they have one of these Rangers with a skirt and breasts and all that, then they have to make those characters based on that. So that's probably actually why they make those decisions based on what the Rangers are, what they look like in their suits. So yeah, at first I wasn't sure about Hunter and Blake, the Thunder Rangers, but they kind of grew on me. Like I don't really care for them that much, but I'm now that they have now that they're good and they're fighting with the Rangers, I like them a lot more because I hate the evil Ranger thing. I just hate the way it's portrayed and how like the actors portray it, how they're always like evil smiling and like evil laughing and stuff. It's just not done well usually. So that's pretty good. And then something. All right, a few crazy things happen. So we find out that Lothor, who's the main villain of the show, was the sensei's brother, which is funny because when we go and visit that time, we find Lothor, the human who was the human who becomes Lothor, is just like an Asian man, and then Lothor, you can totally tell that he's not Asian under his mask, but whatever, he changed over time, whatever the case is. Lothor's okay as a villain. He's really creepy. As a kid, I would be creeped out by Lothor. There's a few things that he does that would creep me out, and just his look in a way. Also, look, one of the best things about this show for me is our Lothor's nieces. Mara and Capri, they are hilarious. So they play like these materialistic. So they're aliens, but they play like these materialistic girls who are always like they're always crushing on boys and talking crap to each other, and I just love their back and forth. How one of them's always just like, "Oh, just shut up," and those type of things. Like that is hilarious. So I multiple reasons why I'm enjoying Power Rangers Ninja Storm. And again, I'm on like episode 15 or 16. Love the original three Rangers. I think the Thunder Rangers are cool. Lothor's not a bad villain. Like as far as like Power Rangers villains goes, he's not bad. And I love Mara and Capri. They are the best side villains ever. Mara and Capri, hilarious, just amazing. They make the show so enjoyable. The best side villains ever. I'm claiming it, and that's crazy. Didn't think I would get that from this show. So yeah, let me know what you think of Power Rangers Ninja Storm. Like, where do Power Rangers fans view this show? I'm curious. I don't really know, to be honest. Like, whether people think it's bad, whether people think it's good. I'm enjoying it so far, so I'm curious. If you have any more details on that, let me know in the comment section, or just let me know your thoughts, what you think about it. All right, now on to the best and worst Zords in Power Rangers of all time. So, I did my top 10 Power Rangers list. I did my top 5 villains list. And so, obviously, Power Rangers and villains are important to the show or to the franchise. But another thing that's very important are the Zords. I didn't want to do a ranking list. It just didn't feel right with the Zords. But I want to talk about some of the best and some of the worst of all time. And I actually, if I can get my mouse to work with me. Okay, I actually brought some images to show along with this. So, just so for people who haven't seen some of the Zords that I'm talking about, they can kind of see what I'm talking about. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, man, I don't want to end the show on a negative note. So let's talk about some of the worst Zords of all time first, and then we will celebrate Zords and talk about some of the best. So I've had a thing with Zords where, look, I know Zords are driven by the toys. Like the reasons why they would ever, and obviously the footage that they have. So it's not like Power Rangers is different in the sense that, look, a lot of shows, they make decisions. They could make decisions based on anything. They can just start from scratch, write their show, make their decisions. Like if they have a superhero show and they're shooting original footage for that show, and their superhero has a suit, and they decide to change the suit halfway through the show, and there's like no real reason why. It's not like they're using footage from another country to make their show. They made that decision because they wrote it and they thought of it. For Power Rangers, they have to make their whole show around the footage that they have. So let's say, like for Mighty Morphin Season 2, for example, when they switched to the Thunder Megazords, or the Thunder Zords, I didn't like that they did that, but I have to understand they probably ran out of Mighty Morphin, the original Dinozord footage. So they have to go to the Thunder Zords. So it's things like that. I've always been like, not make me mad, but just make me have an odd relationship with Zords. Also, there's things about the Zords, whether they're done in the old-fashioned way of the guy in the suit, where it kind of looks like a toy type thing, or if they try to CGI them. Because the CGI that they try to use on these shows is terrible, and they're way better off using the toy-looking ones or the guy in the suit. So, speaking of worst, and speaking of CGI, some of the worst movie Zords in the world are from Power Rangers Season 3 and from the movie Power Rangers. Now, the Mighty Morphin a Power Rangers movie, the the original Power Rangers movie. So if you look up here, so they first premiere in the movie, right? And the CGI in that movie is terrible. But you have the Frog Zord, the Wolf Zord, two Bird Zords, and a Bear Zord, and whatever, right? So this, like, this CGI, when I watched it as an adult, just awful. And then the CGI, when they're, like, coming down, when they're, like, flying down and then transforming into the Megazord, it's CGI in the show, and it just looks awful. So these are definitely some of the worst Zords ever in Power Rangers, both in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie and in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 3. So another set of Zords that actually is weird, because, like, I dislike Power Rangers Season 3 a lot. A lot of reason because of the Zords. Power Rangers Zeo is one of my top 4 seasons of all time. And it's might be top 2. But I don't like the Zords. And I don't like the suits necessarily either. And for the same reason, because if you look at this, here, let me make that bigger. So those are ugly. And they have, like, the shapes in the visor and then the shapes in the chest, and then the Power Rangers themselves have the shapes in the visor, and I hate the look. It just looks terrible. And again, the Power Ranger writers aren't coming up with these designs. It's just the footage that they had in the Zords that were created in the adapted footage, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I'm sure there's somebody else that knows more about that than me, but yeah, just let me know if it works out a different kind of way. But yeah, as much as I love Zeo just so much. Like, for multiple reasons. The Tanya character is great. The return of Jason as the Gold Ranger, just one of my most, like, pleasant surprises ever. But the Zords and the suits are just terrible. Now that I'm thinking about it, I got to do best and worst Power Ranger suits, which that is a great idea. Actually, I didn't even think about that. I probably should have did suits before I did Zords, but I'm probably gonna do a suits episode. I'll probably do a weapons episode now that I just thought of that. So something that got me started on this whole idea about Zords is Power Rangers Wild Force. If you heard me talk about Power Rangers Wild Force, the number one thing I complained about are the Zords. First of all, I'm pretty sure they're, like, all CGI, like throw up CGI is what I'm calling it. And also, there's like 50 Zords, because, like, every episode they're discovering new Zords and using new Zords. And I said at the time that if you have 50 Zords, then none of them are special. When we had the original Mighty Morphin Zords, there was only 5, and then there were only 6. They were so special because they were so unique, and they were all just memorable, and you could name them all off the top of your head. And now, like, you get into Wild Force, and this is the only season to do this so far, really. There's been some other seasons where there's unnecessary amount of Zords, but this one took it to a whole nother level. They just keep, and it's kind of like the concept of the season. They keep discovering these little ball things that have the Zords in them. Whatever, but it's just, I just kept getting tired of seeing all these Zords. And I think these are the original ones that they had. These aren't terrible, but they're not great. And when they're in the show, they're like that throw up CGI. And also these, even if these were cool, they don't stick with those Zords. Like, so they keep switching Zords. And also, the weirdest thing ever, and, like, there's a draft Zord in that season, but one of the weirdest things ever in Power Rangers is how, and I talked about this in my Wild Force review, how, I forget her name, the princess and the 6th Ranger guy, how they sing to the Deer Zord, and that once they did that episode where they sing to the Deer Zord, they kept bringing that song back, and it would play during random times in the episodes. And in this Deer Zord, like, while the Deer Zord is not the worst looking thing in the world, I mean, it doesn't look great, but it's not the worst looking thing in the world. It's just the whole thing around the Zords and how they kept switching Zords, and then you have this weird song come up, and like look up the clip from like Power Rangers Wild Force singing to Deer Zord. It is so weird, and then like they're like celebrating after a victory some like 20 episodes later, and they're like, it's like a montage of them just having fun, and this song's playing. It is just so weird. Like, I wish I could recite the song off the top of my head right now, but it is just odd. But yeah, so those are some of my worst Zords in Power Rangers history. I didn't want to end the show on a negative note, so I wanted to talk about those first. So yeah, like the season 3 and the original movie Zords, the Zeo Zords, the Wild Force Zords, specifically the Draft Zord and the Deer Zord, just some of the craziest, wildest, weirdest things I've ever seen in Power Rangers. Now I will say, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite Zords. And you know, if you know me, you know this show, there's going to be a lot of Mighty Morphin stuff in there. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's what I grew up on. But it's not just Mighty Morphin. But anything that I don't mention was either not, well, there's three things. Either I haven't seen it yet, so like I said, I'm on Power Rangers Ninja Storm. I didn't include Ninja Storm on this list because I'm not done with it. I don't know. I haven't seen all the Zords that they're going to use. Also, they either weren't bad enough to be in the worst, or they weren't good enough to be in the best. So any ones that I don't mention, like, they're all right. They're not bad. So as far as some of the best Zords in Power Rangers history, we have the Mighty Morphin Tyrannosaurus Zord. So awesome. So awesome. And I have the sideshow collectible of the Megazord, and right now it's put together, but I kind of want to take it apart so I can see the individual Zords again. I haven't seen them since I first got it. This Zord is one of my favorites. It's my favorite Power Rangers Zord, Jason, the original Red Ranger. But there's just something so cool. I mean, it's a T-Rex. It's the coolest dinosaur, and it's a robot T-Rex, which is just awesome. And I would say it's my favorite if it wasn't for this Zord, which might be my favorite. The Dragon Zord is just so cool because when Tommy shows up in season 1 and he's just kicking butt and beating the Power Rangers up, and his Zord comes out of the water with a flute and it shoots missiles out of his fingers and has a drill on its tail. It's like, come on, that is just so awesome. So like I can never decide whether which one I like better. Here, let me see here. Spoiler. So out of these two, these are my two favorite Zords of all time, and I need to break down my Megazord so I could have them standing together like that, because I have the green one too. These are just awesome, and it's a T-Rex and a dragon. Like, come on now, who doesn't think that's cool? But also, well, since I already kind of showed it, I actually really like the design of the individual Zords in the movie. So in the 2017 movie, you had the individual Zords, and then you had the Megazord. I don't know how I feel about the Megazord still. Like, it's not ugly and it's not bad. It's just not, I don't know. I wanted something different. But the individual Zords, like, that looks great. That looks great. So the individual Zords from the 2017 movie are definitely on that list for some of the best. So yeah, if I were ranking them, Dragon Zord and T-Rex Zord would have been number 1 and 2 for sure. But also sticking with Mighty Morphin, we have the White Tiger Zord. like I never even thought about this, but so this is it. This is how it is like regularly. When it first comes out, it's like a tiger on all fours, and then it can transform into this like humanoid one where it's like a Megazord like up and fighting, and then you have like they do the Ultra Zords and all that where it combines with the other Megazord and does things like that. So I never really thought about this, but my favorite animal has always been a white tiger, and it's probably because of the white tiger Zord. Like seeing it as a kid, I'm sure it has something to do with it. But yeah, like I bash on Tommy because I'm a Jason supporter, and I think Jason should always be the leader of the Power Rangers. But I can't deny that I love Tommy as well, and like he I think the reason why he's so popular is because of the look of his suit and the look of the Zords, because he has the dragon shield. He has the shield when he's the white and the Green Ranger, and the shield just makes the suit look way cooler. So they're like the other Rangers are at an unfair advantage when it comes to that. And his Zords are awesome. He has the coolest Zords, the Dragon Zord and the White Tiger Zord. So those are some of my favorite ones from Mighty Morphin. And here, let me see what we got here. All right, so after that, so I talked about the Zeo Zords. I was looking at the Turbo Zords, and I didn't hate them enough to put them on the hate list, but I definitely didn't like them enough. They're not bad. They're actually kind of cool. The Turbo Zords, because they're cars. It's kind of like Transformers in a way. And I remember, like I like the Turbo movie. Like it's nostalgic, it's fun. Same with the the original movie as well. Just both of them, like the shows, have bad things in them. And I do think the Turbo Zords are pretty cool, but I don't have them on either of these lists. And then we got to so we go from Turbo to In Space. In Space, so this one is just so cool because In Space is a spaceship that turns into a Megazord. So you have their ship, which this ship is cool. Like the second coolest ship ever after the Millennium Falcon. And I don't know when they designed this ship, but you know this is a ripoff of the Millennium Falcon if they designed it after that, which I'm pretty sure they did. Because like I said, I don't think the Power Rangers people designed these. Um, I don't know what else to say. Power Rangers in Space, one of the best seasons ever, and they're in a Star Wars, Star Trek spaceship, and it transforms into a Zord. I couldn't find a really good picture of the Megazord, the In Space Megazord, but it kind of looks like this, and it like transforms in space. So this is a top runner, like a top contender for one of the best Zords ever. It is so cool, and how like we see the other ones transform on Earth, and then we have this one transforming in space, like right outside of Earth in the background. So, yeah, that is definitely a really, really cool one. Yeah, and then after that, I don't really like have a lot that I love, but also look, another one that I have on this list actually is the Lost Galaxy Zords. I actually so the Lost Galaxy Zords, so they look like this, right? And it is the weirdest thing. So when the Lost Galaxy Rangers meet their Zords, they look like this, which is so weird. So they're called the Galactabeasts, and they meet them like this, and it's just so creepy. Look at the pink one, really creepy. And they're like beasts. And when I first started watching the show, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I don't know how that's gonna work, but they're like live beings, and they transform. And like Leo talks to the lion one, and I was like, that's awesome. But then when they actually transform, they look like this. Like when they actually get ready to go into battle, I forget how it works, like what they do to become that. but something happens and now they look like that. So I actually do like the look of these, and especially like I thought this would have been cool if they found a way to have these guys just be the Zords. Like I don't know how live beings would transform into mechanical or Zords or whatever or machines, but I just thought it was cool because I like, what is that thing? I don't even know what that is, but it looks pretty cool. So as far as like uh, Zords go, like these ones aren't bad in my opinion. And then you have the Magna Defender Zord, which is really cool. I should have actually had the Magna Defender Zord as one of my favorites because that one is awesome. So yeah, to run it down, some of my best Zords of all time are the Red T-Rex Zord, the the actually all the Mighty Morphin Zords are incredible. I love all the Mighty Morphin Zords. The Dragon Zord, the White Tiger Zord, the In Space Ship and Megazord, the Lost Galaxy Zords and Galactabeasts, and 2017 movie individual Zords, not necessarily the Megazord. Again, some of my worst and ugliest ones are the season 3 slash original movie ones, the Zeo Zords, the Wild Force Zords, and all 50 of the Wild Force Zords, and specifically the Giraffe and the Deer Zord. So yeah, that's gonna do it for my best and worst Zords of all time. I kind of wish I had it more organized. Maybe I should have ranked them, but whatever. It's all good. It's all fun and games talking Power Rangers Zords. What about you guys? Let me know in the comments. What are your 3 favorite Zords of all time, and what are your 3 worst Zords of all time? Let me know in the comments section. Also, I'm really curious. What do you guys think about Power Rangers Ninja Storm? Like, am I just weird and because I like it, or is it actually like generally loved out there? Let me know in the comment section. I would love to hear anyone's thoughts on that. And that is going to do it for Off the Grid of Power Rangers podcast this week. About 30 minutes now, and a 30-minute mark is pretty good. And I am so upset at myself. Last episode, I forgot to say my ending phrase for the show, and that will not happen again. But yes, I'm Jacob Bartley. This is the Bartley and Barnes YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you like all things Power Rangers. I do this show weekly, every Sunday at 6 p.m. That is the plan for now, but I'm telling you right now, once football starts, I'm gonna have to change the time or the day. But for now, until football starts, it'll be every Sunday at 6 p.m. Yes, Jacob Bartley, Off the Grid, a Power Rangers podcast. Thank you for watching, and may the power protect you.